mystery of the Harakbut face. Deep within the dense and untouched wilderness of the southeastern Peruvian Amazon lies a colossal mystery that has captivated explorers, archaeologists, and indigenous communities alike. Known as the Harakbut face, or Rostro Harakbut, this mysterious carving stands as a silent guardian of the rainforest, a striking stone visage that appears to have been sculpted by ancient hands. Towering above a remote river valley, it is considered sacred by the Harakbut people, who regard it not merely as a work of art, but as a living connection to their ancestors and the spirit of the jungle itself. The Harakbut face first gained widespread attention when it was inadvertently rediscovered by a United States-based oil company conducting seismic surveys in the region. The company's workers, who were cutting lines through the thick jungle and detonating explosives beneath the ground, stumbled upon the immense stone carving. Their industrial operations alarmed the local Harakbut community, who viewed the rostro as an ancestral protector and a powerful symbol of their cultural heritage. For generations, stories of this mysterious face had been passed down through oral tradition, but few among the Harakbut people had actually laid eyes on it. The true significance of the Harakbut face began to emerge when filmmaker Paul Redman decided to document the site. Accompanied by 9 indigenous men, including Harakbut leader Tayori, the team embarked on a challenging expedition through dense rainforest terrain. Guided by elders' stories, they eventually stood before the enormous carving, which gazed solemnly over the valley below. For Tayori and his people, this was not merely a rediscovery, but a homecoming. He expressed that seeing the rostro was deeply emotional, a reunion with their ancestors and a reminder of their enduring bond with the land. The Harakbut face itself is a masterpiece of mysterious craftsmanship. It overlooks a natural amphitheatre-shaped valley, perfectly positioned above a waterfall, as though deliberately placed to watch over the surrounding landscape. Tom Buick of the Rainforest Foundation, who also visited the site, noted the remarkable precision and intent in its design. He observed markings that suggested the face was carved using primitive tools, and even described a smaller face embedded within the larger one, a rostro within a rostro. Surrounding rocks appeared to have been purposefully arranged to divert the river's flow, protecting the sculpture from erosion and damage, indicating an understanding of both artistry and engineering far ahead of its time. What makes the Harakbut face even more intriguing is that there are no other naturally occurring rock formations of similar shape in the valley. Its positioning, form, and deliberate features strongly suggest it was sculpted by human hands. Yet the question of who carved it and why remains unanswered. The Harakbut people, who have no written history, maintain through oral tradition that the face has existed for countless generations. To them, it represents an ancient guardian spirit, watching over the forest and its inhabitants, ensuring the balance between nature and humanity. The rediscovery of the Harakbut face has reignited global curiosity about the mysteries hidden within the Amazon. While many ancient structures and monuments around the world have been studied extensively, this remarkable carving remains largely untouched and shrouded in secrecy. Its remote location, coupled with the dense rainforest that surrounds it, has protected it from outside interference, but has also kept its origins hidden. Werewolf footage causes nighttime curfew for Brazilian residents. In the early months of 2021, a small town in Brazil was thrust into panic after a series of chilling sightings that seemed to come straight out of folklore. Residents began reporting encounters with a mysterious, werewolf-like creature roaming the streets after dark. Described as a tall, muscular humanoid covered in dark fur, with elongated claws and a canine-like face, the creature quickly became the focus of widespread fear and speculation. The reports grew so persistent that local authorities were forced to intervene, imposing a strict nighttime curfew in an attempt to protect the community. The hysteria began when a video surfaced online, reportedly captured by a group of teenagers who were wandering the streets late one night. The footage, though grainy and unstable, appeared to show a humanoid figure walking on 2 legs, moving with a strange animal-like gait. The creature's silhouette was large and unnervingly human in shape, yet the movements were too fluid and powerful to belong to a person. As the figure drew closer to the camera, it seemed to turn its head, revealing the faint outline of a wolf-like face before vanishing into the darkness. Within hours, The video went viral, spreading across social media and igniting both fear and fascination. What followed was a wave of panic that swept through the entire town. Locals began reporting strange noises echoing through the night, deep growls, howls, and the sound of heavy footsteps on the pavement. Livestock was found missing from nearby farms, and several residents claimed to have caught glimpses of glowing eyes watching from the shadows. Parents refused to let their children out after sunset, and neighbors began forming watch groups, taking turns guarding their homes through the night. As fear gripped the town, speculation ran rampant. Some believed the creature to be a genuine werewolf, a cursed human capable of transforming during certain lunar phases. Others suggested it might be the result of a scientific experiment gone wrong, possibly linked to a nearby military facility known for its secrecy. A few residents even claimed that the creature's movements were too calculated, suggesting an intelligence that hinted at something beyond the natural world. The situation escalated when local government officials stepped in. They declared a nighttime curfew, urging all residents to remain indoors from dusk until dawn. Patrols were organized, with both police and military personnel seen combing the streets after dark. Curiously, several witnesses later reported seeing armed teams moving through the outskirts of the town, equipped with searchlights and specialized vehicles. One resident claimed that authorities used the curfew not just for public safety, but to conduct a covert search for the creature under the cover of night. Despite the government's official stance, many residents began to suspect that officials knew more than they were admitting. Eyewitnesses described seeing unusual aircraft flying low over the area, and others reported loud mechanical sounds coming from the nearby forest. Some even believed that the creature had been captured, though no official statement ever confirmed it. To this day, authorities maintain that the curfew was merely a precautionary measure in response to public panic. Yet the secrecy surrounding the investigation only fueled further mistrust. For weeks, the streets remained eerily silent at night. Even the dogs, once quick to bark at any sound, seemed strangely subdued. Over time, the reports of the creature gradually diminished, though no definitive explanation was ever provided. The viral video that sparked the chaos was quietly removed from most online platforms, leaving only fragments and recollections behind. In the months that followed, the story of the Brazilian werewolf became part of local legend. Some say the creature still roams the countryside, lurking in the dark forests beyond the town. Others believe the government captured it and concealed the truth to prevent widespread panic. Whatever the case, the people who lived through that strange period still remember the fear, the curfew, the patrols, and the sense that something unearthly had crossed into their quiet town. The mystery of the hairy hands of Dartmoor. Deep within the rugged moorlands of Dartmoor, in the English county of Devon, lies a stretch of road that has earned an eerie reputation among both locals and travellers. This particular strip, running between the small villages of Postbridge and Two Bridges, is infamous for its unusually high number of accidents and unexplained mishaps. To those who know the tales, it is not merely a dangerous road, but the heart of a dark legend, the haunting of what has become known as the hairy hands of Dartmoor. For decades, drivers and cyclists alike have reported strange occurrences while traversing this lonely stretch of road. The phenomenon always seemed to follow a similar pattern. As the traveller entered the area, an inexplicable force would suddenly seize control of the vehicle. Drivers claimed that their steering wheels were wrenched violently to one side, as though gripped by unseen hands, determined to drive them off the road and into the surrounding moor. Those who survived described it not as a mere loss of control, but as something deliberate, as though they were physically overpowered by an invisible assailant. At first, the reports were brushed aside as superstition or the result of fatigue from long journeys across the misty moors. But as more incidents were recorded, each recounting nearly identical circumstances, the legend began to take shape. Witnesses began to speak of seeing not only the steering wheel being tugged, but actual ghostly hands, large, covered in thick hair and disembodied, clutching at the wheel before vanishing into thin air. These spectral hands were said to appear suddenly, grabbing the driver's hands or forcing the wheel toward the edge of the road, often sending the vehicle careening out of control. Local residents soon began to suspect that this was no ordinary stretch of road, but one haunted by something restless and malevolent. The hairy hands became part of Dartmoor's folklore, a warning to anyone who dared to travel the moor alone after dark. Some believed the hands belonged to a man who had met a violent end along that road, doomed to relive his final moments by forcing others to share in his fate. Others whispered that the moors themselves, steeped in centuries of legend and sorrow, had manifested a physical embodiment of their mysterious energy. The story might have remained dismissed as a mere ghost tale, if not for the accounts of credible witnesses. Among the most well-known was journalist and author Rufus Endell, who claimed to have experienced the phenomenon firsthand. While driving along the haunted road, Endell reported feeling the steering wheel twist sharply beneath his grip, as though a powerful set of unseen hands had seized control. He fought desperately against the pull, and after an intense struggle, the invisible force suddenly released its grip. When he stopped the car to collect himself, the sensation vanished, leaving behind only a lingering dread. Endell's account carried weight among the locals, confirming what many already believed, that the road was cursed and that the strange hairy hands were a very real danger. His story spread quickly, and others came forward with similar experiences, describing the same chilling struggle for control against an unseen force. The legend of the hairy hands of Dartmoor continues to this day, a reminder that even in the modern world there remain places where the line between the natural and the supernatural blurs. Travellers still approach that stretch of road with caution, some making the sign of the cross, others muttering quiet prayers as they pass through. Whether the phenomenon is the lingering spirit of a lost soul, a curse tied to the land, or something even more inexplicable, one thing remains certain: Dartmoor holds secrets that refuse to be forgotten. The mystery of the lost wealth of Ophir. The lost wealth of Ophir stands as one of the greatest mysteries of the ancient world, a legend that bridges the realms of faith, history, and untold treasure. Mentioned several times in the Bible, Ophir was said to be a land of immense prosperity, rich with gold, silver, ivory, gemstones, and other precious materials. It was from this fabled land that King Solomon, one of the most powerful rulers of Israel, obtained much of his legendary fortune. For centuries, explorers, historians, and theologians have sought to uncover the true location of Ophir, yet its whereabouts remain hidden, shrouded in both time and myth. According to biblical texts, King Solomon, the third king of Israel, ruled with wisdom and wealth beyond comprehension. His reign lasted nearly 40 years, during which time his kingdom flourished in both trade and influence. Solomon was said to have maintained an extensive trading network that reached far beyond the borders of the Middle East. His ships, built in partnership with King Hiram of Tyre, sailed from the ports of Ezion-Geber, journeying to distant lands in search of rare and valuable goods. Their most renowned destination was the mysterious land of Ophir, a place that, according to scripture, yielded vast quantities of gold of exceptional purity. It was said that every 3 years, Solomon's fleet returned from Ophir laden with treasure: gold, silver, precious stones, exotic animals, and fine wood. The sheer abundance of wealth that flowed into Jerusalem from these expeditions helped Solomon transform his capital into one of the most magnificent cities of the ancient world. His palace and temple were adorned with gold, and his throne, described as one of the wonders of its time, was made entirely from the precious metal, inlaid with ivory and surrounded by 12 golden lions. By the end of his reign, Solomon had accumulated an estimated 500 tons of gold, an amount that would equal roughly 60 trillion in modern currency. The true source of this incredible fortune was said to be the Cave of Ophir, a hidden vault where Solomon's treasure was stored in secrecy. Yet no one has ever found this cave or the land that housed it. Over the centuries, countless theories have been proposed about the location of Ophir. Some believe it lay along the coast of the Arabian Peninsula, in what is now Yemen or Oman. Others suggest it may have been in Ethiopia, where legends of great ancient wealth still persist. A few historians even point to India or Southeast Asia, arguing that the descriptions of trade goods match materials native to those regions. While scholars continue to debate its location, there are those who insist that the story of Ophir represents more than just trade routes. that it may hold the key to one of the greatest hidden treasures in human history. The idea that King Solomon's wealth still lies buried somewhere in a forgotten cave has inspired treasure hunters and archaeologists for generations. Expeditions have been launched into deserts, jungles, and mountains, all in pursuit of the gold of Ophir, yet none have succeeded in uncovering definitive proof of its existence. To this day, the mystery endures. The mystery of the Howden Moor crash. The mysterious Howden Moor crash remains one of Britain's most perplexing unsolved cases, a strange and unsettling event that continues to stir debate decades later. The alleged incident occurred on the evening of the 24th of March, 1997, deep within the rugged landscape of the Peak District in South Yorkshire. What began as a routine spring night soon turned into one of the largest air and ground search operations in the region's history, one that, despite massive effort, uncovered no wreckage, no survivors, and no definitive answers. Yet for many, the absence of evidence has only deepened the belief that something extraordinary took place that night, something that authorities may have worked to conceal. At approximately 10 o'clock that evening, Ecclesfield Police Station began receiving a flurry of calls from alarmed residents. Witnesses from the village of Bolsterstone and surrounding communities reported seeing what they described as a small plane flying unusually low over the Howden Moors. Moments later, they observed a flash of light followed by several plumes of smoke rising from beyond the hills. Believing that an aircraft had crashed, South Yorkshire Police immediately mobilised a large-scale response, deploying over 40 officers, with fire and ambulance services placed on high alert. Local airports, both civilian and military, were contacted, yet all reported that no aircraft were missing and no radar had detected any flights in the area. Chief Inspector Christine Burberry led the initial operation, convinced by the consistency of witness reports that a serious incident had occurred. She ordered an extensive search, assisted by the West Yorkshire Police helicopter, which scoured the area for signs of wreckage but found nothing. The situation escalated when, just after midnight, an RAF Sea King helicopter joined the operation. The Royal Air Force Rescue Coordination Centre at Kinloss in Scotland authorised its deployment after receiving word of a potential air disaster. Interestingly, the British Geological Survey also confirmed that a sonic boom had been recorded around the same time as the sightings, adding further mystery to the event. By early morning, the search had become one of the largest rescue efforts ever mounted for a presumed small aircraft crash. More than 200 people, including emergency services, off-duty officers, and volunteers from Peak District mountain rescue teams, scoured 50 square miles of remote, treacherous terrain. The night was bitterly cold, the ground uneven and dangerous, yet the teams pressed on, driven by the belief that survivors might still be out there. Despite 15 hours of searching, no aircraft, no debris, and no evidence of impact were ever located. At 7 o'clock in the morning on the 25th of March, the RAF imposed a 10-mile dangerous flying zone over Howden Moor, grounding all civilian and media aircraft. The restriction disrupted flights at Manchester Airport and raised eyebrows among locals and journalists alike, especially since no crash had been confirmed. Later that day, officials announced that the incident was the result of a sonic boom, likely caused by military jets. However, police records indicated that the RAF had initially denied any aircraft activity that evening. Rumours began to spread almost immediately. Locals reported scorched earth on the moors and unmarked vehicles removing covered objects under the cover of darkness. Witnesses claimed to have seen men in black visiting the area, while others spoke of mysterious helicopters with no visible markings circling the region in the following days. Yorkshire Water employees allegedly saw large black bags being loaded into a Sea King helicopter and later transferred to what appeared to be an ambulance. Officials dismissed these claims as misunderstandings, insisting the bags contained mountain rescue equipment, but the story only fueled further speculation. UFO researcher Max Burns would later investigate the case extensively, gathering testimony from locals and analysing police logs. According to Burns, multiple witnesses reported unusual aerial activity that night, far beyond what could be explained by a conventional jet. One witness, travelling from Sheffield toward Barnsley at around 7:40 in the evening, described seeing a triangular craft with lights around its edges. Another, A radio journalist observing the Hale-Bopp comet near the Peak District reported hearing a deep humming noise overhead moments before the alleged explosion. A woman, identified under the pseudonym Emma Maidenhead, also claimed to have seen 2 military jets pursuing a triangular object with blue and pink lights. She described it as a triangle with its corners cut off, moving silently above her street before vanishing over the hills. When she later travelled toward Derbyshire with Burns to investigate, they were stopped by police near Ladybower Dam and observed several helicopters searching the area. Around 10 o'clock that night, an elderly resident in her 80s reported a cigar-shaped craft glowing brightly as it moved toward the Strines Inn. Dozens of other witnesses described low-flying lights and strange aircraft in the sky, all coinciding with the time of the reported explosion. Despite these consistent reports, the official narrative concluded that no crash had taken place. Chief Inspector Burberry defended her decision to continue the search, explaining that given the volume of calls and the possibility of multiple casualties in freezing conditions, she could not have acted otherwise. However, many within the police and local community felt that vital information had been withheld. Even senior officers admitted that the incident remained unexplained. Former Inspector Jack Clarkson publicly stated that he believed the event involved a low-flying military aircraft, possibly on a secret exercise. He criticized the RAF for failing to inform police of their operations, suggesting that a simple phone call could have prevented the massive search effort. Clarkson noted that the Sea King helicopter's rapid arrival and lack of apparent urgency hinted that officials already knew the true nature of the incident. He concluded that the object was either a covert military craft or an experimental aircraft of some kind. Constable Mick Haig shared similar doubts, asserting that the people who reported the event genuinely saw something and that it was not merely a figment of imagination. He suggested that whatever happened, it involved military technology that remained undisclosed to the public. The RAF eventually acknowledged that jets were flying in the area that night, but denied any connection to the sonic boom or an accident. To this day, they have never provided a full account of their operations over Howden Moor. This lack of transparency has only deepened suspicion among those who believe that the incident was far more than a simple training exercise gone wrong. Max Burns went further, claiming that radar data from RAF Linton upon Ouse indicated the presence of an unidentified craft in the skies above South Yorkshire that night. According to Burns, an insider confirmed that the radar tracked an unknown object for 10 minutes before it vanished without trace. When questioned, the RAF denied this, insisting that the radar system was not operational that evening. For Burns, this was evidence of a cover-up. Proof that an unknown craft, possibly of non-human origin, entered British airspace and was pursued by military jets. To this day, no physical evidence of a crash has ever been found, and no conclusive explanation has been offered. For some, the Howden Moor incident was a tragic misunderstanding, the result of atmospheric disturbances and human error. For others, it represents one of the most compelling examples of a government concealment in modern British history. Whether the object seen that night was a secret military vehicle, a misidentified natural event, or something far stranger, the Howden Moor crash remains an enduring mystery. The strange lights, the sonic boom, the sudden military involvement, and the swift dismissal of public concern all contribute to a story that refuses to fade into obscurity. The mystery of the Thames Monster. In the spring of 2016, a tourist visiting London captured something extraordinary that would soon spark one of the city's most intriguing modern mysteries. While travelling across the River Thames on the Emirates airline cable car near the O2 Arena, the visitor noticed a dark, moving shape in the water below. Pulling out his phone, he began recording what would become one of the most talked-about pieces of river footage in recent history. The short, 30-second clip appears to show a large, dark mass surfacing briefly before submerging again beneath the murky waters of the Thames. The object was unlike anything commonly seen in the river. It appeared to move deliberately, creating visible ripples in the water, with 2 large humps rising and falling in a way that suggested something living. The sighting immediately captured public imagination, as countless viewers compared it to the legendary Loch Ness Monster of Scotland. However, this was not a remote Scottish lake. It was the heart of London, one of the busiest and most urbanised waterways in the world. Within 24 hours of the video's upload, another clip emerged, this time filmed closer to the Thames barrier, several miles downstream. This second piece of footage seemed to show a similar dark shape gliding near the surface before vanishing. The timing of these two sightings, occurring so close together, led many to believe that something unusual was indeed moving through the river. Speculation grew rapidly, with theories ranging from a previously unknown aquatic creature to a massive displaced marine animal that had somehow found its way into the Thames. Marine biologists were quick to investigate, but found no clear explanation. Some experts suggested that it could have been a whale or a pod of porpoises. After all, the River Thames has become cleaner over the past few decades, allowing wildlife such as seals, dolphins, and even whales to return. Records show that more than 2,000 seals and over 450 porpoises and dolphins have been spotted in the Thames in recent years. However, none of these species match the size, shape, or behaviour seen in the videos. Ian Tokalov of the London Wildlife Trust offered one of the few public statements regarding the incident. He acknowledged the mystery by noting that the organisation was not aware of anything that large and moving in the river, leaving open the possibility that the object was something completely unknown. His comment only fueled further curiosity, as many wondered whether the Thames could hide a creature previously unrecorded by science. Witnesses who viewed the original footage described a sense of disbelief. Some remarked that the object appeared far too smooth and symmetrical to be a cluster of debris or a boat. Others pointed out that the dark shape seemed to submerge and reappear in a manner consistent with a living creature surfacing for air. The movement, slow yet purposeful, seemed almost too coordinated to be an inanimate object. In the following weeks, people began gathering along the riverbanks, hoping to catch another glimpse of the so-called Thames monster. Amateur investigators arrived with cameras and drones, scanning the waters near the O2 Arena and the Thames barrier. Despite their efforts, no additional footage was captured, and the mysterious shape was never seen again. Some locals suggested that it could have been an enormous sturgeon, a species known to inhabit deep waters and capable of growing to massive lengths. Others believed it was something entirely new, perhaps an undiscovered aquatic species that had adapted to the changing conditions of the river. A smaller number of theorists proposed that the object was not biological at all, but mechanical, perhaps a secret military or research drone being tested beneath the surface. What gives this mystery its enduring power is the location itself. The River Thames, a historic artery running through the centre of London, has seen centuries of human activity, yet remains vast and unpredictable in its depths. While modern sonar and navigation systems have mapped much of it, certain areas, particularly near industrial docks and deep water channels, are still difficult to fully explore. The idea that something could live undetected beneath these waters, moving quietly between the tidal currents, has captivated imaginations ever since the video surfaced. The original footage, though short, continues to circulate online, where analysts and enthusiasts have examined it frame by frame. Some claim to see outlines resembling fins or a tail. Others argue that the humps are too evenly spaced to be anything but a large, singular organism. Despite the attention, no conclusive answer has ever been given. To this day, the mystery of the River Thames monster remains unsolved. The mystery of the Buckinghamshire vampire. The mysterious case of the Buckinghamshire vampire remains one of the oldest and most chilling legends in English folklore. The story, which dates back to the 12th century, tells of a man from Buckingham who met his end in the year 1192. He was buried with due ceremony on the eve of Ascension Day, a time of great spiritual significance. However, according to the accounts passed down through generations, his rest was short-lived. The following night, the man reportedly rose from his grave and returned to his home, where he visited his unsuspecting wife as she slept. The tale describes how he lay upon her with such weight that she could barely breathe, as if her very life was being drawn away. The same terrifying event occurred again the next night, leaving the woman terrified and desperate for help. On the third evening, she confided in trusted friends, asking them to stay with her through the night to protect her from the strange being that had once been her husband. As the legend tells, when the creature returned, it was driven off by the vigilance and courage of those who kept watch. But its retreat from the house did not end the nightmare. It merely marked the beginning of a greater terror for the town. Having been repelled from his home, the restless figure turned his attention to his brothers who lived nearby. He began appearing at their houses during the night, pressing down upon them in their sleep, just as he had done to his wife. Soon, the entire community found itself living in fear, for the being would wander the streets after dark, disturbing anyone who dared to rest. People began holding nighttime vigils, praying and keeping watch in an effort to protect themselves. As the nights went on, the haunting presence of the Buckinghamshire vampire only grew stronger. Witnesses claimed that the figure even began to roam in the daylight, defying all expectations of a creature from beyond the grave. It was at this point that the frightened townsfolk turned to the church for help. They approached local priests and scholars, pleading for a way to bring peace back to their community. To their astonishment, they were told that similar incidents had been reported in other towns across England, a disturbing revelation that suggested this was no isolated event. The bishop, deeply concerned by what he heard, composed a written absolution for the restless man's spirit. He instructed the townspeople to exhume the grave, open the coffin, and place the absolution directly upon the body's chest. The ritual was carried out with great care and reverence, and from that moment onward, it was said that the creature no longer rose from his resting place. The grave remained undisturbed, and the people of Buckinghamshire were at last free from their torment. The mysterious case of Teddy Wang Te-hui. The disappearance of Hong Kong tycoon Teddy Wang Te-hui remains one of the most puzzling and enduring mysteries in modern Asian history. Known for his wealth and influence as the chairman of Chinachem Group, Wang was no stranger to danger. His high-profile life had already drawn unwanted attention when he was first kidnapped in 1983. On that occasion, he was eventually released after spending 8 days chained to a bed, following a ransom payment of 33 million Hong Kong dollars by his wife, Nina Wang Kung Yu Sum. However, the second kidnapping proved far more ominous. On April 10, 1990, Teddy Wang disappeared once again, this time shortly after leaving the Jockey Club in Hong Kong. What followed was an intense and dramatic attempt to rescue the businessman. His captors demanded an unprecedented 60 million in exchange for his safe return. Nina Wang, who had once again stepped into the role of negotiator and caretaker, paid 34 million of the ransom, but unlike the first ordeal, this time her husband was never returned. In the weeks that followed, anxiety turned into despair as hopes of Teddy's safe return began to fade. On April 26, 1990, just days after the partial ransom payment, 6 individuals were arrested in Taiwan, including a Taiwanese intelligence officer and at least one Hong Kong resident. Some of these individuals later claimed that Teddy had been taken out to sea and thrown into the water from a small boat on April 13th. Despite extensive investigations and searches, his body was never recovered. In 1999, nearly a decade after his disappearance, Teddy Wang was declared legally deceased. The mystery deepened further when Nina Wang disputed the contents of her husband's will, eventually becoming the chief beneficiary of his estate. Legal battles followed, but she maintained that her actions were in accordance with his wishes. Adding another layer to the mystery were claims from her personal assistant, who stated that Nina had received phone calls from Teddy as late as the year 2000, raising questions about whether he may have somehow survived or escaped under unknown circumstances. Theories about Teddy Wang's fate continue to circulate. Some speculate that the case may have been more complex than initially believed, possibly involving figures with high-level connections. Others wonder if he may have been held in secret or relocated. Without concrete evidence or a recovered body, these speculations have remained unconfirmed. The disappearance of Teddy Wang is not only a personal tragedy, but also a story that captivated Hong Kong and the international business world. It involves wealth, power, family conflict, and international intrigue. To this day, the case remains unresolved. While legal closure came with his declaration of death, the mystery of what truly happened to Teddy Wang Te-hui continues to cast a long shadow over the legacy of one of Hong Kong's most prominent business families. The mysterious case of Christopher Matthew Kersey. In April of 1990, 17-year-old Christopher Matthew Kersey was a bright, motivated student living in Eagan, Minnesota, a suburb just southwest of Minneapolis. He was known for his academic excellence, having earned recognition as a National Merit Scholar semi-finalist and a member of the National Honor Society. In addition to his achievements in the classroom, Christopher participated in extracurricular activities, including the high school swim team and band, where he played the clarinet. Outside of school, he enjoyed both indoor hobbies like reading and working on his computer, and outdoor pursuits such as skiing and camping. Friends and family described him as intelligent, thoughtful, and dependable. Because he was so committed to his studies, it was unusual when Christopher asked to stay home from school on April 20th, 1990. That morning, he told his mother, Lonnie, that he had a severe headache. Concerned, she gave him some pain medication and agreed to let him rest at home. Lonnie, who worked at a local elementary school, left him alone in the house for the day. Christopher's father, Jim, was away on a business trip, but the family felt confident that their responsible teenage son would be fine. When Lonnie returned home later that evening, she immediately noticed that the family's blue Dodge Caravan was missing and their dog, Bowser, was loose in the front yard. Upon entering the house, she found a handwritten note from Christopher on the kitchen table. The message read, "Mum, something important came up. Feeling somewhat better. Back by 6, unless I get lost." The word lost had been underlined twice, something Lonnie believed was a light-hearted reference to how Christopher often had trouble with directions while driving. 6 o'clock came and went, and there was no sign of Christopher. As the hours passed, Lonnie grew increasingly anxious. She called Jim, who immediately ended his business trip and began the journey home. Around midnight, the couple contacted local police to report Christopher missing. At the time, law enforcement advised that they had to wait 24 hours before filing an official missing person report, a standard practice back then. The next day, the Kurtzer family officially filed the report. That same day, a letter arrived at their home postmarked from Duluth, Minnesota, approximately 2 hours north. It was written by Christopher and appeared to be in his handwriting. In the letter, he admitted to faking the headache in order to skip school and said he had taken the car to travel somewhere unknown, expressing that he intended to disappear. The letter also expressed sorrow and a desire not to hurt his loved ones. He concluded with the words, "Take heart, because if just one person is better off for having known me, my life will not have been wasted." This message shocked and devastated his parents. They had noticed some emotional struggles, but never imagined things had reached such a serious point. That same day, they discovered that Christopher had withdrawn $200 from his savings account and that one of Jim's firearms was missing. The ammunition, which was stored separately, had not been taken. On April 22nd, 2 days after he left home, the family's Dodge Caravan was found abandoned in the George Washington State Forest near Grand Rapids, Minnesota. Authorities located the keys inside the van, along with a note identifying the vehicle. Interestingly, the forest was near where Christopher's grandparents had once lived, although they stated they had not seen him. Search dogs traced a scent about a mile into the woods before it abruptly ended. No other clues were found. Jim later described the moment he learned the van had been found as deeply emotional, saying he physically felt the weight of fear and uncertainty settle into his chest. The family hoped the discovery would lead to answers, but instead, it led to more questions. Investigators spoke to several witnesses. One man claimed he had picked up a young hitchhiker who matched Christopher's description and dropped him off in Duluth, the same city from which the letter had been mailed. A friend of Christopher's reported receiving multiple mysterious phone calls over the course of several months following his disappearance. The caller never spoke, but background sounds suggested a party or social gathering. The calls would end abruptly when the friend attempted to engage the caller in conversation. Several other unconfirmed sightings of Christopher were reported. One individual claimed to have seen him in Old Orchard Beach, Maine, but no substantial evidence backed the claim. Months later, a hunter found a firearm in the woods that matched the description of the shotgun taken from the Kurtzer household. However, police could not definitively link it to the case. In 2004, an anonymous letter was sent to the investigating police department. The writer claimed that Christopher was alive, referred to him as their guardian angel, and insisted he would return when the time was right. The letter also urged authorities to stop searching for him. Despite the hopeful tone, police ultimately considered it a hoax due to the lack of verifying details. Jim and Lonnie Kurtzy never stopped looking for their son. Even after moving out of the family home, they kept their original phone number in hopes that Christopher might someday call. As recently as 2016, the couple participated in media interviews, urging the public to come forward with any information that might bring them answers. In 1993, the band Soul Asylum released a music video for their song Runaway Train, which featured images of missing teenagers. Christopher was one of those featured. While several individuals from the video were eventually located, many, including Christopher, remain missing to this day. When he disappeared, Christopher was 5 feet 11 inches tall and weighed around 135 pounds. He had brown hair and eyes and noticeable cystic acne. He was last seen wearing a denim trench coat, black sweatshirt, blue or black jeans, brown leather boat shoes, and a zebra-striped Swatch watch. He was also carrying his driver's license and wallet. To this day, the disappearance of Christopher Matthew Kurtzy remains unsolved. His case continues to inspire both sadness and hope. For his parents, the passage of time has never dulled the desire for resolution. They continue to believe that one day they will finally learn the truth about what happened to their son. The strange disappearance of Danette Latonia Millbrook and Jeanette Latrice Millbrook. The disappearance of Danette Latonia Millbrook and Jeanette Latrice Millbrook remains one of the most unsettling and underreported missing persons cases in American history. The fraternal twins vanished on March 18, 1990, from Augusta, Georgia, when they were just 15 years old. Despite the strange circumstances of their disappearance and the family's continued efforts to find them, their case was closed prematurely and remained dormant for over 2 decades. Danette and Jeanette were typical teenagers growing up in the close-knit community of Augusta. They lived with their mother, Louise, and their siblings in a newly relocated apartment further from their school, Lucy Laney High School. The girls were known to be respectful and well-behaved, and neither had a history of running away or getting into trouble. They had recently transferred schools due to the move, and they were trying to adjust to the change. On the day they disappeared, the girls had run a series of errands and visits around town. Their day began with a trip to a local church's chicken, and upon returning home, they told their mother that a man in a van had followed them for part of the way. Though unsettling, they did not appear overly alarmed, and nothing more is known about the man or the vehicle. Later, they walked to their godfather's house to borrow bus fare for the week. Their new home was further from their high school, and they needed money to take the city bus. After receiving the money, which included extra for snacks, they visited a cousin's house and then stopped by their older sister's residence. In both cases, the girls asked someone to walk home with them, which was uncharacteristic and raised questions later. Both requests were declined, one due to impending darkness and the other due to recent childbirth. The girls' final known stop was at the Pump and Shop gas station on the corner of 12th Street and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. There they bought snacks and soda. The clerk, who knew the girls, said they behaved normally and didn't appear distressed. She would be the last confirmed person to see them. From there, they would have walked through a short, well-lit route to get home, but they never arrived. Danette was wearing a white Mickey Mouse shirt, white jeans, and black shoes. Jeanette was dressed in a blue pullover over a white turtleneck, a beige skirt, white stockings, and white sneakers. Both had shoulder-length jerry-curled hair, pierced ears, and a scar near their navels from surgery they had shortly after birth. The twins were average height and build for their age. When the girls failed to return home, their family grew worried. They attempted to report the girls missing that evening, but were told by authorities to wait 24 hours before filing a report, a common but deeply flawed practice at the time. When the report was finally made, the investigation seemed minimal and quickly lost momentum. Adding to the family's frustration, the original police file reportedly went missing, and clerical errors in the reports, such as misspelled names, persisted in official databases, making it harder for external groups to find and investigate the case. What confused and saddened the family most was that the case was closed within a year, reportedly after the twins turned 17. According to some explanations, it was assumed they had run away and were now of an age where they could choose to remain missing. Another explanation was that a juvenile officer mistakenly told investigators that the girls had been found. Yet another account claimed that the twins had entered the foster care system and were later adopted. However, this theory was debunked when it was found that a close relative's children were in foster care, possibly leading to confusion. Despite the lack of law enforcement follow-up, the Millbrook family continued to push for answers. Their perseverance, combined with growing public interest, eventually led to the case being reopened in 2013 by the Richmond County Sheriff's Office. In a public statement, the sheriff acknowledged that a serious oversight had occurred and promised to treat the reopened case with the seriousness it deserved. DNA samples were collected from family members in 2017, a sign that investigators were exploring all avenues, including the possibility that the girls' remains could be found and identified. However, by 2019, it was unclear if the investigation had made any progress or if it remained active. Over the years, the twins' story has drawn renewed attention through podcasts, independent journalism, and advocacy efforts. Despite this, their case still lacks the media coverage often seen in other missing persons cases. Advocates have pointed out that race and socioeconomic status may have played a role in how little attention the case received at the time of the disappearance and in the years that followed. The disappearance of Danette and Jeanette Millbrook remains a deeply troubling mystery. Their story is a sobering reminder of how critical early and sustained investigative work is in missing persons cases, especially involving teenagers. For the Millbrook family, the search for answers continues, driven by love, memory, and the hope that one day justice will be served, or at the very least, that the truth will finally be known. The mysterious 300 million yen robbery. On December 10, 1968, one of Japan's most astonishing and mysterious crimes unfolded in the quiet suburbs of West Tokyo. What became known as the Great 300 million yen robbery was not a typical heist involving weapons, violence, or dramatic getaways. Instead, it was a carefully crafted con, executed with deception and precision, and remains one of the country's most perplexing unsolved mysteries. The robbery involved the theft of approximately 300 million in cash, an amount equivalent to over 1 billion yen, or around $7.3 million today. The money was being transported by bank employees in a standard passenger car headed for Toshiba's local factory to fund employee bonuses. At the time, it was common for companies in Japan to distribute bonuses in physical cash, and bank transfers were far less prevalent. Security practices also lacked the rigor seen today, as banks often used ordinary vehicles and unarmed staff to move large sums, believing this made them less conspicuous. A few days prior to the robbery, the manager of the Kokubunji branch of Japan Trust Bank received a threatening letter. The note, composed with both handwriting and printed clippings, warned that a female staff member should deliver a sum of 3 million yen to a designated location. If the demand was ignored, the sender claimed both the bank and the manager's home would be destroyed. Concerned, the bank contacted the authorities, who prepared an ambush with dozens of officers stationed at the drop-off point, but no one showed up. The police concluded the letter was a hoax and closed the case. Still, the bank manager took the threat seriously and warned employees to remain alert. It was a tense period, as the country was experiencing economic unrest and protests related to inequality. Extortion threats were not uncommon, though they rarely materialized into actual events. On the morning of December 10th, a black Nissan Cedric sedan left the bank, carrying 3 heavy metal boxes containing the cash. 4 bank workers were inside, all unarmed, as the vehicle made its way through the city in heavy rain. As they neared their destination, a man on a motorcycle approached, appearing to be a traffic officer. He signaled for them to stop and informed them that an explosion had reportedly taken place at the bank and the manager's home. He warned them that their vehicle might be rigged with explosives and instructed them to evacuate immediately. Concerned for their safety, the employees exited the vehicle while the supposed officer checked beneath it. Suddenly, smoke and flames erupted under the car. The man shouted for them to take cover as he jumped into the vehicle and drove it away. Believing he was moving it to a safe distance, the employees waited for an explosion, but none came. Realizing something was wrong, they approached the scene again. What they found was a spent flare, a crudely disguised motorcycle, and no trace of the car or the money. The truth soon dawned on them. They had been duped in an elaborate hoax. Within moments, a master impersonator had driven off with a fortune, leaving no immediate leads. The Tokyo Metropolitan Police launched a massive investigation. Roadblocks were established across the city, and thousands of vehicles were searched. Yet the trail quickly went cold. Subsequent investigation revealed that the thief had switched vehicles multiple times. The original bank car was abandoned, and the money transferred into another vehicle at a different location. Each of the cars used in the process had been covered with tarps, delaying their discovery. The meticulous planning became clear. The thief left behind a trail of evidence, but much of it appeared intentionally misleading. Police processed fingerprints and other physical clues, but were unable to identify the suspect. Witnesses provided descriptions, and a composite sketch was distributed widely, with over 780,000 copies printed and shared across Japan. Yet no credible leads emerged. Authorities interviewed thousands of people, cross-referencing more than 6 million fingerprints. Still, no matches were found. At one point, suspicion fell on a 19-year-old known as Boy S., the son of a police officer and leader of a local youth gang. He reportedly resembled the composite sketch and may have had knowledge of law enforcement procedures. Tragically, after being brought in for questioning, he passed away shortly after by ingesting poison. His father insisted on his innocence, and later, authorities found no evidence linking him to the crime. The composite image was withdrawn, and the investigation lost one of its few promising leads. The investigation lasted 7 years and became the most extensive in Japanese history. A staggering 170 officers were involved, and the case cost more than triple the amount that was stolen. Yet, despite the vast resources deployed, the case remained unsolved. By 1988, the statute of limitations expired. Any hope of prosecuting the criminal vanished with it. To this day, no one knows the identity of the person who carried out the robbery, how they planned it so effectively, or what became of the money. Speculation has persisted for decades. Some believe it was an inside job or involved someone with law enforcement knowledge. Others suggest it may have been politically motivated or carried out as a form of protest against corporate wealth. But without hard evidence, these theories remain purely speculative. What makes the Great 300 Million robbery particularly intriguing is the level of sophistication and restraint. No weapons were used, no one was harmed, and the thief vanished without a trace. It stands as a rare case of a crime committed with such precision that it left no viable trail, only questions. Decades later, the case still captures the imagination of investigators, authors, and the public. It has inspired books, films, and television dramas. The image of a calm, calculated individual impersonating a police officer, wielding only fear and a flair to escape with millions, is as compelling as it is unsettling. The story endures not just because of the amount stolen, but because it challenges assumptions about criminal behavior and law enforcement capabilities. The mysterious lights over Hudson Valley. The serene Hudson River Valley in New York, known for its affluent communities and scenic landscapes, became the unlikely backdrop for one of the most widely witnessed UFO phenomena in American history. Between 1983 and 1986, more than 5,000 residents across New York and parts of Connecticut reported seeing unexplained lights in the sky. What followed was a mix of public fascination, official skepticism, and years of lingering questions that have never fully been resolved. Beginning in the early 1980s, a series of strange sightings gripped the area. Eyewitnesses described formations of bright lights, often arranged in a circular arc or V-shape, silently moving across the night sky. These lights shifted positions and changed formations, exhibiting flight behavior that many believed was not consistent with known aircraft. Some sightings were so startling that motorists pulled over on highways to stare into the sky in awe. One of the most talked about encounters took place at the Indian Point nuclear power plant. Security personnel there reported a large, silent craft hovering for a brief period above the facility. The craft was estimated to be nearly 900 feet long. Sightings of boomerang-shaped silent crafts became more frequent, drawing attention from both curious locals and national media. Among those who reported sightings was Dennis Sant, a well-respected government employee and family man living in Brewster, New York. On March 17, 1983, he witnessed a massive structure in the sky, described as metallic and girded in appearance, hovering silently with vivid, iridescent lights. He recounted how the experience instilled fear and unease as thoughts of unknown encounters and being taken away flooded his mind. Traffic on Interstate 84 came to a standstill that night, as other drivers joined Dennis in watching the unusual craft drift overhead. It marked just the beginning of what would become a series of widespread and coordinated sightings across the region. Just a week later, Officer Andy Sadoff of the Newcastle Police Department had a similar encounter during a routine patrol. At nearly the same time, Ed Burns, a computer engineer and manager for IBM, was driving along the Taconic Parkway when he noticed his car radio filling with static. Looking up, he saw a triangular craft which he estimated to be the size of a football field, gliding silently above him. Burns pulled off the road and joined other motorists who had also stopped to witness the spectacle. Like many others, he believed the object could not have been from Earth. The object appeared to be traveling northward across the Hudson Valley. Within minutes, police departments across the region were inundated with calls. Officer William Wolfe Jr., working dispatch at the Yorktown station, recalled a surge of reports as residents described massive formations of lights. Officer Kevin Soravia, who arrived shortly after, stated he saw an object with nearly 20 lights, forming a V-shape that stretched several hundred yards across the sky. However, not all officials agreed on what they were seeing. Officer Wolfe believed the lights resembled aircraft flying in formation. He noted the sound of engines and said that from his perspective, the display could easily be explained by multiple small planes flying together. This interpretation was further supported by observations from Anthony Capaldi, an air traffic control specialist, who believed the sightings were the result of stunt pilots flying in tight formation. From his vantage point in the control tower, it appeared as though multiple lights were blending into one large source due to their synchronized movements. Still, many residents and investigators remained unconvinced. Author and UFO researcher Philip Imbrogno, who had interviewed numerous eyewitnesses, stated that sightings had occurred well before the alleged stunt flying began. He believed that while the pranksters may have tried to replicate the lights in later months, the original sightings involved something entirely different. Further complicating matters was home video footage taken by Brewster resident Bob Pozzuoli in June 1984. The video showed a rigid light formation hovering in the sky, which experts later analyzed and found to be moving as if it were a single, solid object rather than individual aircraft. Eyewitnesses present during the filming confirmed that it did not resemble the noisy, engine-driven flights seen in the weeks that followed. Despite the theory involving stunt pilots, the unique characteristics of the earlier sightings, size, silence, and seemingly impossible movements, left many with lingering doubts. Witnesses who had seen both the supposed prank flights and the initial mysterious objects claimed there was no comparison. Today, the Hudson Valley sightings remain one of the most documented and debated UFO events in American history. While skeptics point to the explanation involving local pilots, others continue to believe that what hovered silently above the valley's forests and towns was something far more unusual. Decades later, the mystery endures, carried by those who remain convinced that what they witnessed in the skies over Hudson Valley defied any earthly explanation. Evidence of the United States Air Force actively covering up angel hair reports. For as long as there have been sightings of unidentified flying objects in the sky, there have been reported incidents of a mysterious material descending from the sky. Known as angel hair, angel grass, or star jelly, UFO researchers claim that fallen thread-like material, often described as being similar in likeness to cobwebs or gelatinous hair strands, are believed to have an extraterrestrial origin and could be physical evidence of otherworldly intelligence. Even more interesting, reports of angel hair have been sighted all around the world, predominantly across Europe and parts of the United States, and hold similar descriptions despite the material being less popularly known by UFO researchers. Even more peculiar, an incident reported by a housewife back in 1956 appears to shed light on the active cover-ups surrounding the impossible-to-explain material by United States Air Force personnel. Sometime late in the afternoon on the 25th of September, back in 1956, one of the strangest angel hair reports was made in the city of Cincinnati, Ohio, that many researchers believe to have been an organized cover-up from Air Force personnel. According to the report, An anonymous housewife living within a suburban area of Cincinnati had noticed a strange web-like fibrous material floating down into her yard from the sky. When looking up into the sky, it appeared as if the material was falling from some indeterminate height in the clouds and appeared to have been isolated within a region of only a couple hundred yards on and surrounding her property. Unsure of what the material was, and believing that the fibrous gossamer could have been potentially harmful or from a supernatural source, the housewife would contact the local police and report the strange incident, hoping for immediate action to be taken. Oddly enough, despite the strange nature of her sighting, local law enforcement appeared to have completely ignored her request and shrugged off the claim as nothing more than harmless pollution. Fearing that her sighting would lead to a cover-up with no official action taken by law enforcement investigators, the anonymous housewife would get in contact with the editors of a popular UFO and saucer magazine referred to as Orbit. The editors from Orbit would advise the housewife to gather as much of the material in a jar to be sent for analysis to the magazine publication and possible future investigators. It was at this moment that the housewife claimed to have noticed a bizarre behavior associated with the unexplainable gossamer. According to the housewife and a future Orbit publication, the woman claimed that as she had attempted to gather the white fibrous material, she realized that the gossamer appeared to have been receptive to her touch. As she would make physical contact with the material with her finger, she would notice that the material appeared to twist and curl up as if responding to a human touch. As she would make further attempts to handle the material with a cloth between her fingers and the gossamer, she noticed that the fibers appeared to have no reaction or curling whatsoever to material that was not conductive. Shortly after her strange finding, Orbit editors would advise the woman to reach out to the closest United States Air Force base for analysis and further study, as the material appeared to fit the descriptions and anomalous behaviors of previous angel hair reports. Even more interesting, however, despite local law enforcement officials refusing to acknowledge the case and dismissing the housewife's finding as nothing more than average debris or harmless pollution, Air Force officials, upon being contacted, would swiftly respond to the case and forcibly gather all of the material and samples that the woman had on or around her property and had personally collected. After a few weeks of holding the material, the Air Force would claim to work in tandem with the local air pollution center located within the city of Cincinnati, Ohio, in the hopes of identifying the material as some common type of polluting material being produced within the local region. Although no chemical tests would be made public and no supporting evidence to their claims would come forward, Air Force investigators and air pollution experts claimed that after exposing the material to a series of chemical and microscopic tests, they were able to accurately identify the material as appeared to be commonly produced cupramonium rayon fibers. The investigators would then posit a theory that a nearby local industrial plant was responsible for the debris due to a defective filter. Oddly enough, no fines for any local industrial plants would be made, and no further pursuit into proving their outlandish claims would continue, as the Air Force investigators would consider the entire ordeal to have been a solved case. Not only do ufologist experts deny the explanation, they would posit several issues with the supposed solution after failing to find any evidence of a local industrial plant producing cupramonium rayon or suffering from defective filters causing pollution in the nearby area. Additionally, given the locality of the debris having been found in only a small radius and only within a few hours on an isolated day, researchers found it highly implausible that an industrial plant located more than 40 miles from the housewife's home could have been responsible for the peculiar gossamer. Interestingly enough, the Cincinnati, Ohio Angel Hair Report would not be the only incident actively covered up by United States Air Force personnel. On the 11th of September, back in 1962, several local residents living within the small town of Seabury, Kentucky, became concerned for their health and safety after being exposed to a bizarre substance that many of the eyewitnesses claimed slowly fell from the sky. Although magazines focused on the topic of extraterrestrial contact had already popularized the idea of angel hair being related to extraterrestrial craft, and so could have swayed or primed witnesses to the event, several eyewitnesses to the falling material claimed that they had seen unidentified flying objects floating in the sky, darting between clouds, shortly before the strange gossamer had been deposited. Wishing to gather a sample of the material before it could be blown away, or possibly disintegrate, as has often been reported in angel hair sightings, officers with the state police, alongside a local civil defense director, were immediately sent to where the debris had floated down and gathered the substance which they described as looking similar to spun glass. According to eyewitnesses to the event, the material had been falling in large deposits for almost 2 hours by the time the officers and civil defense director had arrived. Hoping to quickly dispel any fears about the material, the investigators gathered a sample of the spun gossamer and provided the material to the nearby Air Force base for analysis. The results surrounding the analysis of the material were considered to be inconclusive, as Air Force personally claimed the material could have come from 3 possible sources. One possible explanation offered by Air Force personnel claimed that the recovered material could have been chemical waste caused by a defective filter at the nearby industrial park. It has occurred several times in the past surrounding textile plants and chemical plants, where defective filters have caused material to exit through a chimney and get caught in the air, often flying and resting in nearby areas miles away. When it comes to the material at Seabury, Kentucky, however, no evidence for the material having come from a nearby chemical or industrial plant seemed to surface. Additionally, given the fact that the majority of the material dropped in an isolated location, it seemed highly implausible to have been caused by natural wind currents spreading thin industrial waste through the air, as the material would have naturally been deposited over an area of several miles. The accepted Air Force explanation detectives used to wrap up the case ended up proving to be far more bizarre than expected. According to Air Force personnel, officers had asked the investigators if the material could have been a unique form of spider silk caused by migrating spiders. Almost immediately, investigators would return to where the material was seen and ask eyewitnesses if they had seen spiders anywhere around the area during the time of the Angel Hair sighting. One of the eyewitnesses would remark that they had seen a spider sometime during the depositing of the material crawling around on the ground. Due to the eyewitness's testimony, investigators closed the case and dismissed the material as nothing more than spider silk. The Sumerian civilization, nestled in the fertile lands of Mesopotamia, is renowned for its pioneering contributions to human history. Among its many achievements, the Sumerians left behind intricate carvings and artifacts that offer tantalizing hints of their advanced understanding of various aspects of life. A subject of intrigue and debate in recent times has been the presence of what appear to be timekeeping devices, often referred to as Sumerian watches, depicted in these ancient carvings. Intriguing carvings and depictions found in Sumerian artifacts have captivated researchers and enthusiasts alike. Among these carvings, some appear to portray what modern eyes might interpret as wristwatches. These objects, nestled on the wrists of various figures, stand out as anomalies within the context of ancient Mesopotamia. The Sumerians were renowned for their advanced understanding of various scientific, mathematical, and astronomical concepts. They were early architects of complex mathematics, the cuneiform writing system, and even the concept of the 60-minute hour. However, the existence of wristwatch-like devices raises questions about their potential knowledge of timekeeping mechanisms that would seem technologically incongruous for their era. In the carvings, individuals are depicted with cylindrical objects resembling modern wristwatches on their wrists. These objects display circular shapes and are accompanied by peculiar appendages that suggest possible crowns or dials. The specificity of their placement and design has led to speculation that these depictions could indeed represent timekeeping devices of some kind. While the idea of wristwatches in ancient Mesopotamia may seem anachronistic, it's important to remember that ancient civilizations had various means of measuring time, often using sundials, water clocks, and celestial observations. The Sumerians, with their advanced knowledge of astronomy, might have devised mechanisms to track time with impressive accuracy, even if they differ significantly from modern wristwatches. Some scholars argue that the wristwatch-like objects may not have been intended to represent functional timekeeping devices. Instead, they suggest that these objects could carry symbolic or ritualistic significance. In ancient cultures, time was often intertwined with religious and cosmic beliefs, and the depiction of these objects could have carried deeper meanings related to the passage of time and the cosmos. The presence of these wristwatch-like objects highlights the complexity of Sumerian culture and the intricacies of their artistic representation. Whether the carvings truly depict timekeeping devices or not, they provide a unique window into the Sumerian perception of time and the objects they associated with it. The depiction of wristwatch-like objects on Sumerian carvings remains a subject of intense debate. Skeptics argue that these objects could be simple adornments, amulets, or representations of tools unrelated to timekeeping. Furthermore, they point out the limitations of Sumerian technology in producing actual wristwatches as we understand them today. The presence of Sumerian watches on ancient carvings invites us to reflect on the challenges of interpreting artifacts from bygone eras. It underscores the delicate balance between recognizing the sophistication of ancient civilizations and avoiding the imposition of modern perspectives onto their achievements. Regardless of whether the wristwatch-like objects were functional timekeeping devices, symbols of cosmic significance, or artistic renderings, they serve as a reminder of the mysteries that linger in the shadows of ancient history. These enigmatic carvings compel us to continue our exploration of the Sumerian civilization, its beliefs, and its contributions to human progress. The Sumerians' knowledge of the cosmos. The clay disc contains a star map from ancient Sumerian civilization. The ancient Sumerians had a certain level of astronomical knowledge, as seen in their records. Unfortunately, much of this knowledge has been lost over time, and only a few fragments remain to give us a glimpse into their understanding of the universe. The Babylonian astronomical knowledge, in comparison to the later standards of Babylonian astronomy, seems relatively rudimentary. Ancient clay tablets from Babylon that have withstood the test of time since the beginning of Mesopotamian civilization document the earliest recorded instance of a total solar eclipse observed in Ugarit. The majority of our knowledge regarding their involvement in ancient astronomy comes from the Babylonian culture, which indirectly transmitted this information. In early Babylonian records, Sumerian star names are used, indicating the existence of a shared body of knowledge that was passed down through generations. A Sumerian seal depicts the sun positioned in the middle of 11 celestial objects. The Sumerians appeared to possess knowledge of the heliocentric nature of the solar system. Within certain tablets, they documented the presence of 11 celestial bodies or planets. The celestial bodies known as planets and moons, traditionally totaling 9 planets and 2 moons, have been observed. However, there is some uncertainty surrounding the exact composition and understanding of these bodies in relation to their rotation around the sun. A 12th celestial object has been discovered outside of our solar system. Scientists are currently engaged in the endeavor of identifying an entity that potentially exists in an orbit beyond the outer planets of our solar system. The knowledge of our solar system was already present among the Sumerians, who lived about 3,000 years before the ancient Greek astronomers. They recorded their understanding of the solar system on clay tablets, using cuneiform writing and illustrations. This information predates the ancient Greeks' knowledge of the subject by several millennia. The Sumerian civilization is widely regarded as the birthplace of human civilization and is recognized as the oldest in human history, with a history that dates back more than 8,000 years. This ancient settlement and civilization emerged in the region known as Mesopotamia, which encompasses present-day Iraq, parts of Iran, Anatolia, and Central Asia. The Sumerians had a highly developed culture and society, encompassing a well-established government, educational institutions, social structure, reliable food sources, religious beliefs, artistic expression, advanced mathematics, astronomy, astrology, medicine, various technologies, and numerous significant innovations. The ancient civilization developed a method of written communication utilizing wedge-shaped symbols known as cuneiform. They meticulously recorded their historical information and documents on clay tablets. Moreover, they demonstrated their innovation by creating musical instruments like the golden harp, as well as crafting exquisite jewelry, metallic objects, stoneware, and textiles. In the Sumerian cosmology, the universe was intricately woven with mythology and spirituality. The Sumerians believed that the universe was populated by a pantheon of deities who held sway over various aspects of existence. Enlil, the god of air and storms, and Anu, the god of the heavens, were just a few of the celestial beings believed to influence human affairs. The Sumerians closely observed the movements of celestial bodies, attributing significance to their positions in the sky. The cyclical patterns of the sun, moon, and stars were seen as reflections of the divine will, affecting everything from agricultural cycles to the fates of kings and kingdoms. The celestial bodies were considered divine messengers, carrying messages from the gods to the earthly realm. Ziggurats, towering stepped temples, were architectural marvels that dominated Sumerian cityscapes. These structures held profound cosmological significance, often being built with precise astronomical alignments. Ziggurats were designed to mirror the celestial order, with their corners aligned to the cardinal points of the compass, paying homage to the heavens and symbolizing the connection between the earthly and divine realms. The Sumerians believed in a hierarchical cosmic order where the divine and mortal realms were intricately interconnected. They viewed the universe as a structured continuum, with the gods residing in the heavens above and humans inhabiting the earthly plane. This belief fostered a sense of responsibility to maintain harmony and appease the deities through offerings and prayers. Their strange creation myth. One of the biggest mysteries of the ancient Sumerian culture appears to be that of the inspiration and tale of their mysterious creation myth. According to the ancient Sumerians, their oldest scriptures tell of the earth being inhabited by human-like gods that had come from the stars. These beings made attempts to make the world habitable and quickly began to toil the soil and mine the world for minerals that could be used. After a while, the gods referred that their labor was too great and refused to have to work at such an impossible task on their own. This led to one of the gods proposing to create human beings that could be made in their likeness using the body of another god of whom they could force to work to gather minerals and toil the ground. Originally, the humans that had been created were unable to reproduce and have children, as the gods were fearful of them multiplying. However, this quickly changed after two gods granted humans the ability to reproduce, allowing them to also leave the Eden they inhabited, a land that is translated to mean a flat terrain. This angered one of the gods, leading to a massive conflict to which one of the gods became the enemy of man and the other became the ruler of man, and allowed them to be fruitful and multiply over the world. These terms of modifications, creation, and the formation of an Eden have left many wondering instead that perhaps these ancient biblically similar accounts are evidence of advanced beings having genetically created and modified humans as a labor force, only to be given equal rights and abilities that have slowly evolved. The mysterious origin of their language. Though many aspects of the ancient Sumerian origins are shrouded in mystery, there is none more so mysterious than that of the origin and formation of the ancient Sumerian spoken language that is possibly among one of the oldest spoken and written languages in the history of humanity. When the first few written artifacts were gathered from that of the ancient Sumerian civilization, many believed that the spoken language of the ancient civilization was that of Akkadian, a language used by the Semitic people throughout the region, as the written alphabet of cuneiform seemed to have matched the Akkadian writings and styles. Further gathered evidence proved that the language of the people was a distinct language now completely forgotten, with no surviving remnants of the spoken dialect that predated the Akkadian usage, as well as being the first formed written language in history, soon being adopted by the Semitic people and used as a written language for many more millennia after the fall of the ancient Sumerian civilization. This loss of the language have left many experts puzzling over its formation, influence, and possible similar-sounding language descendants in the modern day to trace the evolution of language across humanity. Though it was, at one time, believed that the Akkadian language was similar to that of the Sumerian, given the adoption of cuneiform, it is now known that the language may not have sounded anything alike and seems to be a relic of the past, with no evidence or trace of such a dialect existing in the modern day. Uncovering the mysteries of the language could prove to help researchers to better understand the formation of languages, the evolution of languages over time, as well as the major influences that the ancient Sumerian civilization had, being one of the first ever civilizations to have risen around the world. Throughout history, various ancient civilizations and cultures have left behind intriguing artifacts and symbols that continue to baffle archaeologists and historians. One enigmatic motif that has captured attention is the depiction of a handbag in ancient carvings, sculptures, and artworks found across different countries and cultures. Interestingly, a man came forward and said that he discovered one of these handbags in the Middle East. He went on to detail that he's a digger that looks for ancient artifacts and notes that many of his discoveries have been sent to museums across the world. He shared this photograph with us, saying that it was his most recent discovery and that it closely resembled those handbags that can be seen in ancient Sumerian carvings. The man said that the handbag is a symbol characterized by its distinct shape and handle, and has been discovered in diverse regions and time periods. From ancient Egypt to Mesopotamia, from Mesoamerica to Easter Island, representations of this enigmatic object have been unearthed, suggesting a shared significance across vast distances and cultural boundaries. The handbag appears in reliefs, statues, and hieroglyphs, raising questions about its symbolic meaning and potential cultural exchange. Oddly enough, he said that when he discovered this artifact, someone approached him about buying it. He found this strange, as at the time he didn't tell anyone about the discovery, and found it odd how this individual knew about this object. The digger said the man was very keen to buy it and asked whether anyone had seen it, at which point he said that he hadn't shared any photographs of it. What the man found strange about this individual was how badly they wanted this artifact, and the digger said that to this day, this was the most expensive item he sold, saying that the mysterious individual gave him tens of thousands of dollars for it. When the digger asked the man about his name and where he was from, he said that the strange individual ignored him, but did say that before he left, the man said that if he found any more of these items, that he would be in contact. The digger found this strange, as he had never seen this man before and couldn't understand where he came from and how he knew about this discovery. Luckily enough, the digger had taken some photographs of the objects shortly before he was approached and was able to share them with us. As of right now, the digger is baffled by the experience and couldn't understand why the man wanted the object so desperately. He didn't take a photograph of him, but did describe him as being very tall, wearing a black suit with black shoes and talking in a very monotone voice. He said that he's never seen the man before and that he didn't blend in with anyone from the area. The digger said that he has no idea where the artifact was taken or whether it was purchased by a museum or for himself. Scholars and researchers have proposed various interpretations for the handbag symbol. Some believe it represents a vessel of power or knowledge carrying the secrets of ancient civilizations or spiritual wisdom. Others associate it with the concept of rebirth, symbolizing the journey of the soul or the transition between different realms. The handbag has also been linked to prosperity, suggesting a connection to rituals or beliefs related to sustenance and growth. The presence of the handbag symbol across different cultures and geographical locations highlights the possibility of cross-cultural connections and exchanges in ancient times. It suggests that ancient civilizations might have shared ideas, concepts, or even physical artifacts through trade routes, migrations, or cultural interactions. The symbolic journey of the handbag implies a common thread that unites seemingly disparate cultures in their understanding of the world and its mysteries. The handbag symbol has sparked numerous theories and speculations. Some propose advanced influence, suggesting that ancient civilizations received advanced knowledge or technology from otherworldly beings. Others interpret it as a symbol of a lost civilization or an ancient global culture that predates known history. However, these theories remain speculative, and further research and archaeological evidence are necessary to provide conclusive explanations. The enigmatic handbag symbol found in ancient carvings across cultures and countries continues to captivate the imagination and provoke questions about our shared human experience. Its presence suggests a common language of symbolism that transcended time and geographic boundaries. While interpretations vary, the handbag remains a potent symbol representing mystery, power, and hidden knowledge. Unraveling its true meaning requires interdisciplinary research, comparative analysis, and a deeper understanding of the cultures that left behind these ancient depictions. The handbag symbol invites us to embark on a symbolic journey, connecting the threads of humanity's past and offering a glimpse into the universal concepts that unite us. The ancient Sumerians, who inhabited the land of Mesopotamia, present-day southern Iraq, between the 4th and 3rd millennia BCE, were a remarkable civilization that laid the foundation for many aspects of human culture and civilization. Central to their worldview was a diverse pantheon of gods and goddesses, each associated with different aspects of life, nature, and the divine order. The Sumerian pantheon was a complex assembly of gods and goddesses, with each deity holding specific dominion over various realms. Among the prominent deities were Anu, the god of the heavens, Enlil, the lord of the air and storms, and Inanna, the goddess of love. The divine hierarchy established the power dynamics among the gods, with Enlil often regarded as the highest authority. Sumerian mythology featured captivating creation stories and narratives that explained the origins of the universe and humanity. One of the most renowned tales is the Enuma Elish, which describes the struggle for supremacy between the gods, culminating in the creation of the world. Another notable myth involves the epic hero Gilgamesh, who embarks on a quest for immortality, showcasing themes of mortality, friendship, and the nature of divinity. The gods played a significant role in Sumerian society, influencing various aspects of life, from governance and law to agriculture and warfare. The king, as the representative of the gods on earth, held a sacred role and derived his authority from divine endorsement. Legal codes and administrative systems were established with the gods' guidance, ensuring justice, order, and social harmony. Additionally, the gods were invoked for protection, success in battle, and bountiful harvests. Sumerian religion and mythology had a profound impact on subsequent cultures in Mesopotamia and beyond. One of the most significant contributions of the Sumerians was the development of the first known writing system, known as cuneiform. Using wedge-shaped impressions on clay tablets, Sumerian scribes recorded economic transactions, religious texts, historical accounts, and literature. Cuneiform was a complex system that allowed for the dissemination of knowledge, fostering the growth of literature and the preservation of cultural heritage. The Sumerians established some of the earliest known legal codes, such as the Code of Ur-Nammu and the Code of Lipit Ishtar, which laid the groundwork for later legal systems. These codes emphasized justice, fairness, and the protection of individual rights. Additionally, the Sumerians developed administrative systems, with officials responsible for taxation, record-keeping, and maintaining public infrastructure. These innovations facilitated governance and the efficient management of a growing society. The Sumerians had a rich and complex religious belief system centered around polytheism. They worshipped a diverse pantheon of gods and goddesses, each associated with different aspects of life, nature, and the divine order. Their religious rituals and ceremonies played a vital role in society, ensuring the well-being and prosperity of their communities. The legacy of the Sumerians extends far beyond their own civilization. Their inventions and cultural achievements heavily influenced later civilizations in Mesopotamia and beyond. The cuneiform script spread to other cultures, including the Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians. Legal principles and administrative systems developed by the Sumerians provided a blueprint for future governance structures. Sumerian myths and religious motifs influenced the pantheons and beliefs of subsequent cultures. The Sumerians laid the groundwork for the development of urbanization, agriculture, and complex social structures, leaving an indelible mark on human history.